Hey there, friends. Welcome to a live stream with me, Paul, with Legally Owned America. And a lot of you guys have been staying pretty abreast on a lot of the information and the news going on about the NFA ruling. As you guys know, that 7-day stay is still in effect until, technically speaking, this coming Wednesday, day after tomorrow, on the 12th. It's set to expire at that time, but who knows, give or take. Not a whole lot of movement right now by the DOJ. Until then, or after a higher court's going to rule, the injunction's frozen and the former NFA Form 1, Form 4 process remains in place for everyone until that stay happens. So if you guys don't mind, I want to run a couple things real quick. That's kind of important, and I want to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page here, because I don't want anybody to get in any kind of trouble, because right now, obviously, the clock is ticking on this, and there are things happening behind the scenes right now, and I'll get more on that in a second. If you guys don't mind, I'll go ahead and just I'll update you on what's happening right now. Of course, you guys know that in 2025, Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and zeroed out the longstanding $200 NFA tax on suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns. That all took effect on January 1st. The tax was gone, but the registration system, which is what we all hated anyway, stayed in effect. That was, again, Form 1s, Form 4s, fingerprints, photos, Federal Registry, the waiting period. That has gotten better. A coalition of plaintiffs, Silencer Shop Foundation, Gun Owners of America, Palmetto State Armory, Silencer Co., B&T USA, several other groups, individuals, and 15 states, more on the states here in a second, they all sued. The core argument was a very valid argument, and the argument was, once Congress removed the tax, the leftover registration requirements no longer had a constitutional basis under Congress's taxing power. That's what they were standing on. And they could not be justified under any other enumerated power. August 5th, that was last week, District Judge James Wesley Hendricks in the Northern District of Texas agreed. He ruled that those registration requirements unconstitutional on its face and applied to the covered items, permanently enjoined the ATF from enforcing them against the plaintiffs, their members, and their customers. Again, more on that in a second. Judge immediately stayed his own order for 7 days till around August 12th so that the government could decide whether or not they wanted to seek emergency relief from the Fifth Circuit. As of now, that stay is still in effect, and for 2 more days at least. Excuse me. So, where are we at right now? Well, biggest thing right now is that this is a historic thing that we're experiencing right now, whether you want to admit that or not. I understand we have the Debbie Downers out there, and rightfully so. This will never happen. Did you ever think this would happen, right? First, did you think that the $200 tax stamp would go away? Not many people did. However, it went away. This is a possibility. In fact, if you will indulge me, and I want to put these numbers up because I want to make sure everybody has access to these while we're talking in case you want to jot them down. So, where are we now? Interesting question, because there's a lot going on. There's public reporting that the Department of Justice is very much divided over whether to appeal or seek a further stay. And that in itself, to me, is a small victory, because the Department of Justice, who has a ton of rollovers, people who are still there from the Biden administration and every other poor, horrible administration out there, it's not like they clean house and start over. So there's a lot of DOJ lawyers and a lot of people still there who are very, very anti-gun, and it's starting to reveal itself. Now, fortunately, it's not a slam dunk on their end, because there are a lot of people in there who are actually pro-Second Amendment, and they're saying as much. Career DOJ lawyers are pushing to defend the statute and seek a stay at the Fifth Circuit. Well, the crazy thing is that this stay that they want to extend, it's unconstitutional, because a federal judge ruled that by registering these items was unconstitutional because you were not collecting a tax. There's no monetary equivalent to what you're collecting now. So that means you are only collecting registration, no money. That's not a tax. You don't fill out a form and pay $0 when you pay taxes. There's an exchange of currency. That is not the case anymore. So this thing really doesn't have any standing. If it went to the Supreme Court, it would likely get extended in our favor. Political leadership right now is apparently weighing the optics and political costs of fighting a ruling that benefits the gun community right before the midterms, and that's a big deal. Said that in my video the other day. Pick a side. You can either side with the wrong side, and this is likely going to cost every single person out there their midterms, or you can sit on the right side of it, and stand up for something that's historic and go down in history for somebody who actually stood for something that was constitutional. Now, the interesting thing is, if a federal judge deems that it is unconstitutional, you took an oath to the Constitution no matter what job you are in the federal government, even at the political level. But at the bureaucratic level in the Department of Justice, you are bound by the Constitution, not by the NFA. The NFA does not trump the Constitution. Now, and no pun intended there. Now, obviously, they passed the NFA, and that was unconstitutional many years ago. But guess what came first? The Constitution. So anyone in the Department of Justice who says my job is to uphold whatever the rules and regulations or even laws are, they can't hang on that and say I'm just doing my job, because if they were just doing their job, they would support the Constitution. And it is official that this registration is unconstitutional. So again, what came first? The Constitution came far before the NFA. So if they're truly doing their job and standing up and trying to use older documents and older rulings and older laws as what guides them, then the Constitution should be that document that they follow. So to me, their argument, it has no grounds, because the Constitution should have, at the time the NFA was enacted, made that obsolete to begin with. So as of now, there is no confirmed public filing of any emergency stay request at the Fifth Circuit. That includes anything by the DOJ or anyone else. That could still happen at any time before or shortly after the 7-day expires. Remember, just because we hit that 7-day window on August 12th does not mean everything is cool. So something still could happen shortly after that. Now, regarding plaintiff activity, GOA and other plaintiffs continue to publicly urge the administration not to appeal and to let the injunction take effect. There's a lot of people out there right now in the DC area who are lobbying for us right now. Trust me. I know GOA for one is working nonstop to get people out there to contact the DOJ, as you see these numbers on your screen, to call the White House, call the Capitol Switchboard. Now, let me give you some other options. Some of you may not be may not want to contact these people by phone. So first of all, the White House directory, this is the number that you want to call. Now, I wanted to put this slide up because I want to be very clear. You don't have to go on a tirade when you call them. I know it's tempting. Trust me when I say that. I know it's tempting. I put in quotes down at the very bottom some things that you probably could share with them. Simply tell them, do not appeal the Texas court ruling that blocked NFA registration for suppressors, short barrel rifles, and short barrel shotguns. That's all you got to tell them. You don't have to do anything more. Maybe you could toss in, we know it's all unconstitutional. The federal judge ruled it, it's unconstitutional. But they're essentially keeping score, right? They're keeping track of who's calling in support of one side or the other. So that's really all you have to tell them right there. There's not a whole lot more detail and description that you have to go into to actually say, hey, go into a whole bunch of detail and, again, things down the line, things that have wronged you over the years or something like that. That's not necessary. In fact, if anything, you're taking up the time that it takes for the next caller to get in and say the same thing that we're saying. So that's really important. Now, for those of you that don't want to make a phone call, not comfortable making a phone call, or it's just that's not your way, that's not your style, you can go to whitehouse.gov. Whitehouse.gov you can easily fill out the form there for sharing your comments with them. And again, keep it short and sweet. Do not appeal the Texas court ruling that blocked NFA registration for suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns. Let the injunction stand. That's really important. Again, they are keeping score here. You don't have to get too much more into that, right? Now, I mentioned midterms. We're right in the middle of it. Here we go. Pressure Congress as well. Use the Capitol Switchboard if you don't know how to contact your own rep or anybody else over there. This goes for the Senate or the House. Doesn't matter. Call that number. Tell the operators if you want your House members or one of your senators, and they will put you in touch with them as far as who to talk to. Again, tell them, urge the administration not to appeal the NFA registration injunction. It's a core issue for us gun owners, and the midterms are only months away. And again, if you're not comfortable telling them that, you can also go to congress.gov. They will direct you to whoever you need to go to at least make your voice heard in that case. Now, a lot of what we've been talking about, and I know that we've talked quite a bit about this, is I've gotten tons of not only emails, comments on videos, comments on social media posts that I've made, whether it's on Instagram or X or Facebook. And by the way, if you don't follow me there, you definitely want to follow me. X is the Wild West. You can say whatever you want. You can use whatever flowery language you want. I'm really at home on X right now. In fact, I'm going to start uploading my videos to X as well. So I hate to completely abandon YouTube because it is a necessary vehicle for us to get out there. But I won't be abandoning YouTube. I'll be putting the content out there on X too. So you want to go those places and check. But really, really important that we address this next issue from the state standpoint. Sometimes it can be confusing whenever someone puts out something like this and you have this type of injunction and they list accompanying states. What that means when they list those states, it means that those 15 states that they have in fact listed, in fact, I've got them right here. It means that those states were part of the lawsuit, which is great. If you're in one of those 15 states, good on you for having great state representatives in your area that are pushing this through. Your AGs are doing a great job. That's all super important because the AGs do move the needle, as you can see in this case. So we have 15 states who took part in this lawsuit. Just because we had this injunction does not mean the 15 states are covered. In fact, it does not mean specifically that the states are covered. What this covers is the law enforcement agencies in those areas. This is not for the little old plebes like me and you. This is for law enforcement agencies who still had to fill out all that necessary paperwork when it came to SBRs, SBSs, suppressors. They were still having to fill that out. I don't like this any more than you do, but it does mean that if this stay does not take place and there's no appeal, that now those 15 states, the agencies in those states, would not have to abide by those NFA registrations. So that's what this is. It certainly does not mean you, if you live or reside in one of those states, that the injunction will necessarily apply to you. This is what applies to you and I, the normal people, right? The non-law enforcement. If these organizations or nonprofits, if you're a part of one of these, again, that's Silencer Shop Foundation, Gun Owners of America, Gun Owners Foundation, Firearms Regulatory Accountability Coalition. That's the one, if you'll remember back during the stabilizing brace issue and lawsuit that a lot of good companies were a part of, like SB Tactical, for instance. They're part of this also. Texas State Rifle Association, FPC, Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. Now, this is where the commercial company plaintiffs come in. If you were a customer of B&T, Palmetto State, Silencer Co., Hot Shots Custom. If you are a customer of theirs, doesn't matter the state, put the state out of your mind because the state, unless you are law enforcement, the state does not apply to us. Don't hang on that state issue. This slide is the most important one for everybody else out there who are non-law enforcement. This applies to you guys and to me. So this matters more than anything. Now, I mentioned the other day, and I have a link in my description of my videos down below. I'll make sure there's one in this live stream also that also will cover, you can, if you click it, you're going to go down there and you're going to find I think it's a link that will bring you to Gun Owners of America. If you click that link, that's going to take you directly to GOA and allow you to go in there and you can sign up. This covers people after the fact also. That's very important to understand that. This is not just for people who were before August 5th members of GOA or any of these other organizations. And I want to stress, take your pick of any of these other organizations on the left-hand side of this page. But I'm providing you a link. You can be an annual member for $25 a year of GOA. $25 a year makes you part of this. Again, not state specific. So if you go sign up for GOA now, excuse me, for that matter, you can sign up for GOA next week if you want to. It's future members and future customers of these organizations. Really, really important. Again, biggest thing I say is once this injunction stays in effect, if there is in fact not a stay or an appeal, there's going to be a rush on everything. So these dashboards to become customers or to buy things from these agencies or these different types of organizations, you may not get through. They're probably going to get crashed. So it's again, it's a great organization anyway. GOA does really fine work. They were the tip of the spear in a lot of this anyway. They're the ones who lead a lot of this type of legislation. So great organization anyway. Obviously, there are different levels that you can sign up for. If you want to be a part of GOA, I'm just telling you, if you're looking for the bare minimum, $25 a year, that's a small amount of money to have to pay to be part of something so historic and so massive right here. So I think it's a great bit of money, very well spent. I just think that it's important to do all that. So what it would take to make this apply to everyone. This is what everybody asks. Okay, well, if I don't want to go out there and I don't want to join GOA, again, it's $25 a year, or if I'm not a customer of PSA or B&T, this is what it will take. And this is important anyway. This is a very necessary next step. So even if this injunction is in place, it will never become federal for everybody in every state until one of these two things happen right here. One, and this is the one that we should be crossing our fingers and wishing for. A higher court, especially the Supreme Court, issuing a ruling that strikes down the registration requirements for everyone. Or, I don't like option two because we don't have any balls in Congress. Congress has to pass a law. They're not going to pass the law. So if the Supreme Court doesn't take this case, and I think they would, because this is going to be a huge one, they would likely take it in best case scenario in 27, like June of 27. Worst case scenario, they'd probably take it in 2028. So that's a long ways out there. But I do think they would certainly take it because it's a big deal. I think every single item that we're talking about now, SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors, if this injunction stays in place, all those items will be in common use by 2027 or 2028. I'm pretty sure of that. So we may have a better legal argument on our hands at that point as well. So our best bet is certainly going to be that this does make its way to Congress, to the Supreme Court and not Congress. Congress has a way of doing the old Charlie Brown, pulling the football out from under Charlie Brown. They make us think that they're working on something and they throw a crumb out there. That's how we got here to begin with, quite frankly, guys. We were all for them getting rid of not just a $200 tax stamp, but I think most of us had less of an issue with the silly little $200. We had more of an issue with the registration, the waiting process, the photos, the fingerprints. You felt like you were going into a prison. It's amazing how you spend more effort trying to buy a suppressor than you do go and visit somebody in a prison system. So anyway, I think that that's probably our best bet if we can get the Supreme Court at some point to take it up. But that's really important. I know it doesn't make a lot of people happy. People don't want to have to, quote, pay for their rights. Well, you're not. You already have that right. You're not buying your rights back by getting a membership with GOA. You're just getting to the finish line a little bit faster than everybody else. Do I think we would get to the finish line eventually? Again, yes. I do think that the Supreme Court would rule in our favor on this. I think the best thing that could happen is if it went to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court looked at what the Judge Hendricks said in Texas and says he's absolutely right, because there really is no argument. I don't know if you guys remember, but whenever Hendricks made his ruling, during that court process, he never even got to the argument of the Second Amendment. He never got into the wording of the Constitution or anything like that, because he deemed that once that dollar figure went away, that Congress had no reasonable reason to continue registering us if there was not that change of hands of money. So the Supreme Court, I don't see how they argue anything other than that if it makes it to the Supreme Court. So I think this is a really, really big deal. So I don't know if you guys are calling, if you're making these phone calls or getting online and reaching out to these people, but man, I can't stress enough how important it would be to do this right now. I think it's super, super important that we show a unified front. I think that contacting, and I'll need to put the DOJ number up also, because you can contact the DOJ. But I think contacting the White House, I've said it before, more than anything, Donald Trump does want to be accepted by the Second Amendment community. He hasn't been as, as good for the Second Amendment community as we would like him to be. but I think he wants to be beloved by the Second Amendment community. And this is his way to do it. I also think that it's very important that Trump realizes that no matter how many rallies he has in support of any of these candidates during the midterms, it's not going to matter. If he lets his Department of Justice appeal this or pose an emergency stay on this, they're done in the midterms. They're done. Now, Congress, in this case, at least at this point, they're not doing anything. So they're kind of not really a part of any of this, but calling them puts pressure on them to put pressure on who they have communication with in the DOJ, but more specifically and probably more importantly, the White House. Hey, Donald Trump, my constituents are calling me, they're emailing me, they're telling me that they do not want you to appeal this. You know, Donald, we're going to lose the midterms if you don't push for this. And again, there's a lot of candidates out there who are up for midterm elections. They also want to hear from you and put that same amount of pressure on Donald Trump to say, hey, you know, Don, you're wanting to come out here and, you know, rally for me and all that. This is where you can rally for me for free. You don't even have to come out. You don't need to take Air Force One out. Pick up the phone, tell Department of Justice what to do. Now, Department of Justice, in theory, over the years, supposedly acts on their own. In other words, they don't look for the president to provide them guidance. And quite frankly, in most cases, they shouldn't, because the J in DOJ stands for justice. So if they're truly doing their job, following the Constitution, and doling out justice, they shouldn't need input from the President of the United States if they're truly ruling based on the Constitution. So this should be a no-brainer. However, in this case, Todd Blanche just got put in there as DOJ, right? Director. He could do his own thing and go against what Donald Trump is expecting him to do. Again, that's assuming Donald Trump is thinking like us and wanting the same thing that we all want. So any little bit of pressure out there, whether it be from Congress to DOJ or from Congress to the White House, but specifically the White House to the DOJ, that's humongous, because putting pressure on Todd Blanche in his brand new role at the DOJ is humongous. And I don't know any other way to state that. I feel like I'm understating it whenever I say how big of a deal this is. I said in my video the other day, you know, Don Jr., if you're listening, somebody forward a video to him. Tell him, look, dude, if you ever had your dad's ear, and if your dad ever listened to you before, now's the time for him to listen to you. Tell him not to appeal this, because the gun owners in America, tens of millions of them, do not want this to happen. And again, you hear the people on the side of, quote, safety talking about it. Same old crap all the time. How many times do you see a criminal with a suppressor or an SBR or an SBS that they legally acquired? Ever? Like, do you know of one instance where a gangbanger, and I'm speaking more specifically to them because that's where the majority of the crime comes from. It ain't this one-off stuff. Oh, look what we scooped up in this bust. We got a suppressor. Whoop-de-doo. If it was one of these stupid little busts where there wasn't an actual crime being committed and nobody was in any danger, that's not a flex to me. So I want to know how many real crimes that happen every single day. Out of all the people who got shot in Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, New Orleans, all those people who got mowed down over the weekend, how many suppressors and SBRs and SBSs did you pick up from those crime scenes? Not saying that they don't exist, but how many did you pick up that were purchased from the people who were using them? If you found one at a crime scene, 99.99% of the time it was stolen. These people aren't going out there running their fingerprints. Hell, their own police records would prevent them from being able to buy those things. And you know what? This NFA crap wouldn't prevent them. The NICS check would still prevent them. Remember, if this injunction stays in place and you want to buy these items, SBSs, SBRs, and suppressors, all you got to do is fill out a NICS background check. Well, guess what? When a criminal would go to fill that out, the same way he would get refused for his tax stamp if he were doing it the right way, the NICS check is going to do the same thing and deny that person. So none of these criminals are getting these things. Anyone who says it would make us safer, they're implying that we are unsafe with these items because we buy them the proper way. We don't steal them out of trunks of cars or vehicles or break into homes and steal them. So we're the only ones buying them the right way. We're the only ones who are actually going through the background check. So nothing changes from a safety standpoint. A thief is still going to steal, whether I had to fill out a background check or whether I had to go through the NFA process. Doesn't matter to the criminal when he's climbing in my door to break into my gun room and steal all my suppressors and SBRs. He doesn't care if they have tax stamps or not. So none of those guys get affected. Literally no one is less safe if these items are taken off of the NFA. Not one person in this country is less safe because anybody can still go fill out a NICS check to get a suppressor, SBR, or SBS, just like they would to go through the NFA process. There's no difference. It's just another clumsy, clunky step when you have to go through the NFA. So there's no safeguards in place now that wouldn't exist through a normal background check. And quite frankly, I don't think suppressors should be, well, I don't think anyone should have to fill out a background check ever for anything. But since it is here on firearms, a suppressor to me is an accessory. That should not go through that. And that's kind of important to talk about too. Because suppressors, you will still have to fill out a background check in order to walk out of the store with one. I know it's stupid because it's just like an optic or something else. There's no reason why there should be a serial number on those. There's no reason why you should have to fill out a background check on those. But that's still easier than the waiting period and all the other crap that you have to go through with the NFA process. So maybe that's the next fight down the road, is to get all that off of there. And quite frankly, the NFA in total needs to be taken completely apart anyhow. So a lot of stuff going on, guys. I didn't want anyone to be misled. I am looking, let's see. Yes. Let me put this out there. I want to make sure I try to address some of these questions. I'm going to go through some of these questions now and look at them as best I can. Triumphant says, should we get a membership to GOA now? Man, I would. Those guys do so much work for us in the gun community. The NRA is improving. I will give them that. The NRA is definitely improving. They got rid of Wayne LaPierre, and they're trying to do some things out there that are, more helpful for gun owners. But GOA, that's the tip of the spear right now when it comes to gun rights. I would highly recommend, I mentioned it earlier, going out and getting your membership now, because I do believe that if this thing goes, stays in place after Wednesday or Thursday, and there's any kind of an official announcement that, hey, you don't have to fill out a Form 1 or Form 4 anymore, I believe that people who are going to be rushing to become members of GOA are likely to crash the switchboard or dashboard or whatever thing it is, the servers or anything out there to sign up for GOA. There's going to be a mad rush for it. I would go out and get it now if I were you. I think that's the best thing to do. I think it makes the most sense. And again, it helps across the board anyway, because unlike the NRA in some cases where they're flying in jets and buying $200,000 suits, the people at GOA use that money to file suit against the DOJ, the federal government, and other places out there who are infringing on our rights. So it's a great organization. Now, next question I see here, and please put, and I know this is kind of sounds stupid, put a question mark at the end of your question, because I am scrolling through the comments now to find these to put them out there. So if I buy a $1 spring from PSA, honestly, Slade, yes, you would be a customer. If you at that point get any kind of a invoice, receipt, if you buy it in person, those of you who don't know, PSA has actual stores out in South Carolina. If you buy something in one of their stores, keep the receipt. That's your proof that you are now a paid customer of theirs. Or if you buy something online, which I have links to on a lot of my social medias, if you buy something online, you're going to get an email confirmation that you purchased something from them. There again, that will be your proof. Now, what I would do is, if I were you guys that are purchasing something online, if you do that and you're getting email communication from those places, again, this may be clarified even better after Wednesday or Thursday. I'm just supposing here. So I would bring my phone, laptop, iPad, whatever I have my email on, and use that. If they're looking for proof that you bought that $1 spring from PSA, they're probably not going to take a printout. You guys know as well as I do, and I know you can fake an email too. I get that. but they're probably not going to take a printout knowing that that can be doctored. And remember, this is a big deal to an FFL. FFL does not want to have their FFL taken from them. So they're going to expect a certain level of proof if this takes place. So make their job easier. If you bring in a piece of paper that looks like it was printed on some dot matrix thing back in the 80s, they're probably not going to take that. Again, that stuff can be doctored pretty easily, but you're probably going to be in better shape if you have your phone with you with your email account pulled up and just scroll to that receipt, that invoice that you got from them, and show them, because it will apply to that at that point. Now, I haven't read this one yet, but let me see. Does this mean that if you belong to GOA and buy a PSA, SBR, less issued items? That's a good question. That's actually a really good question, because I'm not sure how your online retailers are going to handle that. Now, granted, it's probably going to be the responsibility of the receiving FFL to verify these things. So if it were me, I would make sure you have a way to prove these things. But if your question saying GOA and PSA, well, it's one or the other. So if you're just going to go to PSA to buy an SBR, that's kind of all you have to have at that point. You know, again, I still encourage people to be a GOA member, but you would have that PSA customer proof with you once you purchase that. But that brings up the next question is to, if you're purchasing an NFA item, what happens then? Because at some point down the line, again, likely with the FFL, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, if the onus falls onto the FFL to make sure you are a PSA member, I'm assuming PSA would sell that to you, because the actual transfer doesn't take place until you fill out the appropriate paperwork at the FFL. So there's no danger of that SBR from PSA falling into your hands if you are not a covered person, because the FFL will have to make sure that's the case. Now, if this were me and that's how the process ends up working out, I would contact whoever my FFL is that I transfer items to whenever I purchase them online, and I would ask them, hey, is my invoice from PSA going to be fine with you to transfer this to me with a simple NICS check, or are you still going to require a Form 1 or Form 4? Because remember, it's going to be up to the FFL. Even if the process is outlined for how an FFL has to do it, if they don't want to sell to you, they don't have to. They can say, I'm erring on the side of caution, that I don't feel comfortable enough transferring this item to this person, and they could refuse. I don't think that's going to be the case for your better, more pro-Second Amendment FFLs. I think your big box stores are probably where you're going to fall into more of those issues. I think when you try to go, and I never recommend the big box stores anyway, because I like to give my money to the smaller gun shops and the mom and pops. But if you're going to a Cabela's, or if you're going to an Academy Sports or something like that, they're probably going to be where you meet the most resistance, because you're literally talking to somebody making $10 an hour that doesn't know anything, and their boss has probably told them, do not take part in this. We're still going to require Form 1s and Form 4s. So, and heck, for that matter, I don't even know if those big box stores even transfer those NFA items. They may. I don't buy at them, so I don't know. But that's something worth checking into. But that's a good point. Your PSAs may not be the ones who really care if you're willing to spend that money on that SBR, because knowing the FFL that you're transferring it to, that's where the real responsibility to make that argument is going to come into play. So super interesting there. Good question. That was a great question. Let me scroll back through here and try to find some of the other. Yeah, that's a good point too. I think I mentioned in some video the other day, who honestly has never purchased something from Palmetto. I mean, truly, I mean, something, gun cleaning kit or something. Tons of stuff out there. Let's see. I don't know that this is exactly the case. Jared said Brett Shoemate, Attorney General, Civil Division, is going to appeal. I don't think that's what Jared said. I'm on some communications with Jared also, and I don't believe that's what Jared was saying. What Jared is saying, and I'll post on my X account, some other places too, we're posting Attorney General, Brett Shoemate's picture and his name because he's the resistance in the Department of Justice right now. I mentioned earlier that there were kind of two factions that have formed. One of them who is the old guard, who's trying to protect the old NFA rulings, and the other one is the new GOJ people who were saying that, look, if a federal judge is constitutional, it's our responsibility to follow the Constitution and actually push on that side of it, not look at the NFA, because the Constitution will always trump the NFA. So I think that's probably what Jared's saying. There's no announcement at this point that Brett Shoemate has appealed anything or that he's going to appeal. It's not, in fact, it's not his role to appeal. He's not the one who would be appealing anyhow, but he is one of those decision makers on the civil division who has a say in all this. Again, Todd Blanche is the one who has the ultimate responsibility for appealing or not appealing. So a good point right there. And I'm not saying that you or Jared are wrong. What I'm saying is you might have misunderstood Jared, because Brett Shoemate, that's not his role to appeal, but he might be one of those part of the old school out there who's sticking to his gun and trying to make the argument for an unconstitutional thing out there. So keep that in mind also. Good point right there, though. It's certainly worth bringing up. This is one. Have you ever heard a way to prove you're GOA member at a gun shop if you're buying one of these covered by the injunction? There are a couple of ways that GOA, and I assume and imagine GOA will probably put some more information out on this. This is not the last you've heard of them. If this injunction does in fact stay in place, I think that you're going to see a lot of communication from GOA, especially for their members, on how to prove. One, many of you out there do have a GOA membership card. Now, quite frankly, I'm going to be very fair with you. I have no idea where mine is. I don't put mine in my wallet. I do have I have a life membership with them, so I do have a, what would you call it, a life membership certificate, a full page 8x10 certificate. That probably would work, but again, you can print those out too, right? You can fudge those. GOA does have a membership portal on their website. I tried to get in it last night. I have no way to figure. I am a member, again, a life member. I have no way to know how to get in there. If you can go in there, I think you have to change your password, because you're not going to remember your password. But you change your password, you go in there, and it would show your membership status. So that would certainly be a qualifying way to show and prove to the FFL that you are in fact a GOA member. I know there are some other ways out there, more than likely. You probably have an, if you have a recurring once a year invoice that shows that you're paying for your annual membership or whatever. Heck, if you go out there now and buy a $25 a year annual membership with GOA, you're going to get an email confirmation. So keep in mind, you might already possess the proof that you need in order to qualify you as that GOA member. So very, very important right there. What's this next one? Paul, one of the people who brought up the 15 states have brought this up because Chris Kobach of Kansas said the ruling applied to everyone in Kansas in his news release. Man, I'm sorry to a vet. I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer here. I'm not the bad guy by telling you this. That's not accurate. That's absolutely not accurate. That's bad information. I don't know, and I don't mean this in an ugly or condescending way. Please don't take it the wrong way. I don't know who Chris Kobach is in Kansas. Maybe that's one of your politicians over there, but that's incorrect information. Just want you guys to know that. I'm not the bad guy. I'm just a bearer of bad news when it comes to something like that. That does not apply. Again, guys, I want you to see this is what matters. This slide right here is what matters. That's what you need to be paying attention to. That is not good advice saying that if you're in those 15 states that you are covered. That is actually really bad advice. This slide right here means nothing to any of us. It means nothing. 15 plaintiff states don't mean anything. And again, I'm not meaning to sound condescending. I'm making sure that this point is driven home. Please don't hang on the fact that you are one of those 15 states. I don't want to see anybody getting into trouble, because if this stay is lifted by the 12th and there's no appeal and there's nothing else that happens from a higher court, then the people on this slide, depending, again, let me say this caveat too, depending on your state, because your state could have a stricter gun law out there. I don't think that's the case in a whole lot of states out there. I live in the state of Louisiana. State of Louisiana does not have any gun laws on the books that are stricter than the actual federal laws out there. So if the NFA goes away, there are no accompanying NFA rules or laws in the state of Louisiana that restrict or registration requirements or anything. So technically speaking, after this stay is lifted, if this goes into effect, and I am a member of Gun Owners of America, I could take a hacksaw in the state of Louisiana, cut my shotgun barrel down to whatever size I want to, because the manufacturing portion of it also is removed. It's not just the fact that the tax stamp cost went away and that the registration process is going to go away. The manufacturing requirement on those items also goes away. So I can cut my barrel if I want in the state of Louisiana and I'm fine. So super, super important to understand. This slide is what matters, not this slide. This slide is just pertaining to law enforcement agencies. I know I don't like it any more than y'all. That's what it is. It's just law enforcement. Please, please, please understand that, guys. It's uber important to remember that, because I don't want to see anybody get in a bind if this takes effect and you go do something like what I'm talking about. And I'm certainly not giving you legal advice. Let me put that disclaimer in there. So, but even you could go out in the state of Louisiana if this does take effect and buy a solvent trap and make a suppressor and put it in your rifle, and you're good to go. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to register. You don't have to send any paperwork in. Nothing like that. I mentioned earlier the NICS background check. The only way the NICS background check is in play is if you want to purchase one of these items going forward. If you already have the stuff to build one, you don't need to register it. You don't need to fill out a background check. The only reason why the NICS check is in there is if you're wanting to purchase an SBR. Well, that's a gun transfer. It's going to be treated just like any other firearm transfer out there. So that's what the background check is for. It has nothing to do with the NFA. You can almost assume the NFA doesn't even exist anymore at that point. NICS background checks is all that would apply at this point. So already on the item, like a rifle or a shotgun, you could cut it down. You could modify it yourself and make SB and SPS, and it wouldn't matter, because again, it's almost like the NFA does not exist at that point. So that's super critical. Again, I don't want to see anybody get hemmed up. I don't want to see anybody get in a bind. And now they're like, uh-oh, what happened? And I don't know what. I apologize. I don't understand what this statement means. Statements are important to please address them. Maybe go back in the comment section and tell me exactly what you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about states, but I don't know what this means. My apologies on that. Let's see. I'm going down here looking to see if there's any other questions. Something worth looking at. Big box stores often will not transfer a firearm after it's been delayed for 30 days. ATF has gone to them. They have more restrictive policies than ATF. You're probably right. Again, I don't purchase from them, so I don't really know, but you are probably right. Let's see. Again, I'm scrubbing through to try to see. You hear that too. Let me turn my dinger off so people will stop texting me, because I'm getting a bunch of them. I apologize for that. Mike, thank you, bud. I appreciate it. Mike, you always are a big supporter of the channel, and I appreciate everybody that continues to. Yeah, nope. I'm not paying bail. Someone asked, so you're saying Legally Owned America won't be posting your bail? Yeah, I'm not posting bail. This is not legal advice that I'm giving you. I'm just explaining something. If you have any questions, if you're really worried about that, you might want to call an attorney, because I'm not the guy to be calling. I'm just disseminating some information out there. Scrolling through here, seeing if any of you guys had any other questions. I just want to make sure that I cover everything that I can in this live video, because I know there's a lot of questions out there. Good questions, by the way. A lot of you guys had some awesome questions. I appreciate that. I mean, the followers of this channel, you guys are thinkers, and I appreciate that. It's fun to me to talk to you guys, because got some good information out there. Looks like we are done with questions. I don't see any others unless I've missed them. If I have missed your questions, we'll kind of wait another few minutes, just repost them down at the bottom, and I'll try to address them. I would like to put the numbers back on the screen again if you guys want to contact everybody that you can. again, it's important if we can get Congress to put pressure on the president, and if we can get obviously the president to put a little pressure on the DOJ, that would be super, super important. If for some reason I don't get to your question here, or if you have other questions that come up, you can always email me. You see the ticker down at the bottom of the page. You can always do that. This, I don't know. A different subject so we can smoke weed now on the 4473. They've changed the wording. I kind of glaze over that question anyway because I'm not a user. I don't hate on people who do, but I don't read that question. But to my knowledge, they moved some of the wording around a few months ago. The Trump DOJ and ATF did. So I would pull up. You can go online and you can access the latest and greatest ATF forms out there, which would include the 4473. Go pull it up and see. Again, I know the wording has changed, and the wording has certainly made it more desirable for users of cannabis. So there is some wording out there that probably need to pay attention to if you are in fact a user. So I would certainly look into that. I will tell you this: that's a federal form. The government, in my opinion, doesn't need to know any more information than you're willing to give to them. And I'll just leave it at that. If nobody's standing there with a gun to your head, the least amount of information they have on what you do is probably the best. I'm not one of the people who's willing to volunteer information on a federal form or any other federal agency or person who wants to talk to me about something. Let's see, what else? I think that may be about it. Just, it's important for you guys to know that at this point, nothing has changed. The stay is definitely still active. The government hasn't publicly moved for a further stay as of this video. The deadline is only a couple days away. I think that by the 12th or 13th, that would be Wednesday and Thursday of this week, there will be a lot of really interesting stuff going on. So I would stay listening to channels like this one. Again, Jared over at Guns and Gadgets doing a really good job. I know that Mike, Mr. Guns and Gear, is putting some good information out there. Again, you can always check back here. As soon as I would know something, and I will know something very, very, very quick, we all have our ears to the ground right now listening for this information. And once anything changes, it may be a 15-second video telling you this just happened. I may put a longer video out later on to address it, but this just happened. We'll all do that. So I don't think there will be any shortage of information. And that goes for if the government and the DOJ does in fact appeal this, or if they file for an emergency stay. We'll let you guys know that also. I know there's a lot of legal framework and a lot of legal terminology going on around out there. We do try to do our best to get information properly out to you guys so you understand what we're talking about. So I think that we're happy to do that all the time. Hey, man, I appreciate the support on the channel, buddy. I appreciate that very, very much. Wazowski. That's very important to me. You guys are supporting this channel, and it always honors me that you guys do that. Again, guys, I think that there will be no shortage of information. I don't think it's just going to pop up that suddenly the stay was lifted and we're not making a deal, but we're definitely going to make a big deal out of that. But if there's anything else that goes into play, whether it is another stay or again an appeal, I think that's going to be important. But guys, if you have any way to contact Congress or the White House, now is the time. I will also try to go in there and pin a comment on this video once I end it with these numbers. I'll also include the Department of Justice number, because you can call them too. I think as much pressure that we can put on them right now to do the right thing. The worst thing that can happen, there's no guarantee that the feedback we put them is going to make anything change, right? We all know that. But the worst thing that could happen is nobody calls and they don't think anybody cares, because then you know what will happen. You know that. So that's what's important. At least show them that there's resistance to all of this. If they don't think there's resistance, what's the easiest thing to do, right? Just the status quo. Keep doing the same old thing that they've always done. But if we let them know that there's resistance out there across the board, with tens of millions of gun owners out there, that will at least maybe push them to do the right thing. And quite frankly, the more popular this issue gets in the media and on social media, the better it is, because it shines a light on it. And that allows them to not do something sneaky and crappy behind our backs, because it's in the full view of everybody. And when it's in the full view of everybody, it's a whole lot tougher to get around and get away with all the crappy stuff that they always like to do behind our backs. So by giving this as much media attention as we can, that is definitely benefiting us, because again, it's less likely they're at least going to get away with something without us all knowing about it. That's why I really try to push that. Here again, Mr. G-Man Dan, I appreciate the advice. Let's see. Invest in silver from First Mint LLC and get yourself some GOA 1 troy ounce coinage. I was not aware of that. And I'm not trying to sell coins here, but I did not know that. Buy every month, save over when you need full bail. Well, I better not need bail funds. But that's interesting. I did not know that GOA had a 1 troy ounce coin. That's interesting. Very interesting there. And again, thank you for support on the channel. I noticed it's in gold too, so what a coincidence there. But I very much appreciate the support on the channel. Guys, I don't know that I have anything else to share with you all. Just if you want to take a screenshot of these numbers right here, would certainly appreciate that. Let me move the banner so you can see what else is down there. Apologize for that. So if you want to take a screenshot of this is probably the most important screen right here, as far as getting information out and to these switchboards. And if you want to take a screenshot of that, let me go now. I will take you to where if you want to email them, if you're more comfortable sending an email, this is how to get in touch with the White House. Just go to whitehouse.gov. And if you're trying to get in touch with Congress, go here, congress.gov, and you can select your House members and your Senate members from a drop-down list there, depending on what state you live in. So, guys, super important. A lot of stuff going on. As soon as, I'm telling you, as soon as we hear something, we will put some information out, excuse me, and we will let every single one of you guys know what's going on. I think this at least is the most historic thing in my lifetime as an adult that I've ever seen. Never seen us this close to anything. Will I be surprised if this is yanked out from under us? No. I expect that, quite frankly. But we've never been to this point in our lifetimes. So this is historic. And if this happens to go through, this will be one of the biggest things that we've ever experienced in the gun community. So it's worth at least crossing your fingers at this point and hoping it actually makes it. Guys, hope you all have a great evening. Again, as always, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribed to Legally Armed America, because I will keep you guys up to date and abreast of every single thing as it breaks on any of this stuff. And again, I always appreciate you guys commenting in the comment section, because that's always very informative for me to sit back in the evenings and look at a lot of the correspondence that you guys are sending back and forth out there. So thank you guys as all. And you know, goes without mentioning, share the video, because there's a lot of decent information in this video. You can share a live also. Once it's live, go out there and re-access it, and then you can put information out, share it with your friends. So guys, thanks as always. We'll see you guys tomorrow.